picture of hidden irrational forces inside human beings fascinated him. This series is about how those in power have used Freud's theories to try and control the dangerous crowd in an age of mass democracy. At the heart of he showed American corporations for the first time how they could make people want things they didn't need by linking mass-produced goods to their unconscious desires. Out of this would come a new political idea of how to control the masses. By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, one made them happy and thus docile. It was the start of the all-consuming self, which has come to dominate our world today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2, probably the final part for today for Wednesday, November 27th, 2013. Alright, we're almost on the eve of Black Friday here. I covered this last year. It was a fun video to make, November 26th, 2012. And if you didn't see this, check it out. It's pretty interesting, especially if you're just kind of coming into this type of information. Kind of lays it out for you. Sorry about the horrible audio and visual or video quality, but as you can see, it's buffering at a snail's pace, and that should tell you something. But besides, I remember when I put this video out, I was pulling my hair out just to get it up. I mean, the original quality, this was horrible because it was just a recording of a recording. So you're seeing a recording of a recording of a recording. But the point was, it's just you can see it every year of how they've turned people, linked their their unconscious desires with conscious needs, so they think that everything that they would like to have is something that they need, and this is a way of controlling them. So you're going to see that this Friday, they call it Black Friday, where supposedly all these huge corporations that basically capitalize off people by marking up prices from cheaply made goods by nearly basically low-wage workers or slave labor. And they're going to give a few savings, people who are willing to wait outside in the freezing cold usually to get some kind of discounts. So you're talking about predatory capitalism or capitalism in general, which is eventually where it goes. It'll just suck you dry, and we'll get into that too. But as consolidation occurs between, with all these corporations and make more and more money, as the income inequality gap grows, there's going to be less people working, there's going to be less people able to buy things, so they become more desperate around the holiday season to get bargains, because you have to give. It's more about just giving presents because you're going to get presents, and instead of just actually having like a meeting with family where families actually get together. Something that I noticed and I mentioned before was about how families get together on holidays and stuff like that. And it's kind of ceremonial because people they're not really families anymore. They meet up maybe once a year. So it's like they're just carrying on these dead relationships that aren't really there anymore. They haven't acknowledged that the stuff that we've talked about here on GGN and other people have about society being broken, the family being broken, and people's best friends are their cell phones and some characters on television, and of course themselves, which we're talking about a hedonistic society, and that goes into the realm of, okay, Black Friday, what is this? People going out and shopping and stuff to give, right? On Thanksgiving, you're supposed to be thankful for what you have. People go out and they try to spend as much as they can to give whatever, on Christmas. But because they have less to give, they have to go through all this craziness in order to get the savings. The other point was too is that, did you ever notice that how it's become too where people they'll go and they'll do all this shopping or all this waiting and stuff like that for Black Friday, supposedly to get gifts for Christmas, and they're actually getting gifts for themselves. So that just goes in line with what I was talking about. But I mean, me personally, as far as Thanksgiving, It went from a religious thing to a kind of a corporatized thing. And the same with Thanksgiving, Hallmark cards. So when I was a kid, I used to make homemade cards. I always thought those were the best. But it's amazing how much hoops people jump through. I mean, they really get stressed out around holiday season, especially after, because when the credit card bills come in and stuff like that. But in order to fulfill this, what they feel is necessary, which is to go out and spend a bunch of money you don't really have on these overpriced gifts, where corporations are going to make a huge amount of money, and hang out with family members who aren't really your family anymore. But at least they can all sit around and not talk to each other about what's happening in their lives or what's happening in society. Instead, they'll all be focused on their little gadgets that they just unwrapped. Okay, so what did we have recently, right? We had some mall shootings, right? Mall shootings. I don't think that's by mistake. I think those are psychological operations building up to what's coming. They actually want this to take place. While people are out there doing this. Garden State Plaza mall shooting. Remember that? He was found dead in the building's basement. Who knows? I mean, as far as whether this guy was or not, the fact was that he's going through with a shotgun, and he was just laughing. He was actually laughing, and the whole thing just didn't seem right. And he supposedly killed himself. Then you have this. If you're going to travel, oh yeah, we had the LAX shooting recently too. The CIA or however you pronounce his name. He kind of looks like a Mossad agent, but either way, they're just building up fear. So they're going to have security though. Malls work on their security, but keep it in the background. So the head of the security services, I guess they're going to be at the mall, says there's a careful balance between making people feel safe and infringement on civil liberties. He says here that would they rather feel safe, or do they want to see armed guards with machine guns and berets? That's the balance that we all face with safety. And let's not forget good old-fashioned cold and snowstorms. Those are going to hit too. So whatever they can do to keep the fear factor going on a massive scale. Oh yeah, I saw this corporate branding reinforcement sold to consumers as a fun party game, a logo board game. It's from a company called Spin Masters. It puts your consumer knowledge to the test, show off your knowledge of popular brands in this hilarious game of pop culture. Just because with many of these brands, people have emotional attachments to them. It's called like brand separation in that branding. It's basically, how does it make me feel? Kind of like, I don't want to say Trivia Pursuit, but those types of games where it's based off pop culture. So if you don't watch television, or you don't give a shit about all this stuff, cell phones and Black Friday, then you're probably going to lose the game. It's kind of testing how well have you accepted this system, the society, this highly engineered society. Then you have Pope Francis, done some good things, but also he comes out and says some kind of weird things. But Pope Francis attacks tyranny of unfettered capitalism and idolatry of money. So you saw the most recent Pope, Ratzinger, kind of saying the same thing about banks. But he was talking about create some universal bank and stuff. But you can see how this stuff will get twisted. This is from Raw Story, which is supposedly a liberal site. Rush Limbaugh blasts pure Marxism coming from Pope Francis' critique of capitalism. So he kind of has to say this because he's a neocon or a free market capitalist, even though free markets don't really exist. But he's going to go on and talk about that and talk about Marxism. But really, in all reality, capitalism, communism, they're two sides of the same coin made up by mostly Jewish bankers to exploit people. It says, therefore, given the divine right to rule, both are ideologically lower than Judaism in the paradigm of the Jewish Zionists. The nature of the game of the Zionist capitalist is to withhold a land's wealth from its people. Now, this is kind of interesting here. It says here that consequently, Zionist capitalists get immensely rich while the nations conquered suffer crippling debt. Any revolutionary response from the slave nations are corralled into Jewish Marxist communist state-funded trade unions whose organizers are earmarked to become the leaders of the new Jewish Zionist regime. Thus, Jewish Zionism controls both rich and poor. The vicious cycle is a representation of the Jewish Marxist one-party state. So, let's see what wonderful capitalism will bring you here. Pizza Hut GM. I try, and those people say, "Well, you wouldn't have that microphone and that computer to talk with, Darko, if it wasn't for capitalism." So I have to give the disclaimer. If people were free, they'd be allowed to live as primitives in society freely without being bombed or thrown in jail and called extremists. We can't do that, so we're not free. So those same people that would say that would probably say that we live in a free market and a free country. So I'm using this stuff to try to get these ideas out there. It kind of sucks. You go out and you try to interact with people, and the group gets infiltrated and monitored as a terrorist group. A lot of resources go into framing them and stuff. You go out and you'll get arrested for just trying to, organize some kind of protest. You got to get permission from the state. Anyways, Pizza Hut general manager says, I tried to close on Thanksgiving and got fired. So he said that employees should get Thanksgiving off. But his bosses disagreed. This was in Indiana. He worked at the store for a decade. In response, he says, I do not resign, however, I accept the refusal to comply with this greedy, immoral request means the end of my tenure with this company. This was when his superiors told him he could stay open or he could step down, saying, I hope you realize that it's the people at the bottom of the totem pole that make your life possible. So this is what I was talking about. The people at the top make a crap load of money, and we all know this, and like Walmart, and then they tell their employees to get a second job, go on how to find food stamps. I'm talking about McDonald's. Walmart having food charities for their own workers instead of just taking in a little bit less. They hold how much percentage of the world's wealth, the Walton family. Still see people say, well, there's people that don't celebrate this holiday. Well, that's fine. But if enough people, like employees, don't want to work, then they should be able to have that decision to not work. But it's all about maximizing profits, no matter what. And so, this guy would be labeled a communist by the right. And that vicious cycle will go on and on. Nothing will change. Well, hopefully it does. More women working now than before recession. So a record 67.5 million women are in the U.S. workforce. And that was, like I said, to drive down wages and to destroy families, a two-front attack. So that means if they're in the workforce, that means that men are not going to be in the workforce. So this is what they do. Would you date an unemployed man? 75% of women say they would not. Well, of course they wouldn't. So whatever families are about to start, i.e. men and women getting hooked up, that's not even the same. They're destroying the idea of what a couple is, to get married and that. It's not about reproducing. It's not about family. It's not about society or culture. It's about monetary assets. You're an asset to the system, to the financial system. When you're no longer useful, you will be thrown out, or like the homeless, right? As homeless lines line up for food, Los Angeles weighs restrictions. So they're having one of the worst homeless problems in the nation. The charity is under fire, facing an uproar from homeowners. They've called the city to follow the lead of dozens of other communities and ban the feeding the homeless people in public access. Well, the right would like that, right? Fox News chastises people for giving to the homeless. You're an enabler, so, right? You're helping defy the system, right? They're trying to bring the system down. So actually, they're not enabling the system that currently exists. So actually, people like that say things like that are actually enabling this exploitive system to continue. Some people do say, hey, should the homeless and elderly be offered free euthanasia to end their suffering? Just euthanize the homeless. They attack Wi-Fi to them. They experiment on them. So why not? Belgium close to agreeing euthanasia for children. So that's not a bad thing, right? To extend mercy killing to terminally ill children. A British couple was pressured to abort their severely brain-damaged baby, but they gave birth to a perfectly healthy child. So I guess the doctors made a mistake. Oops. The physicians were experts at the hospital, recommended an abortion, telling the parents that the kid would have no meaningful quality of life. This is why we need to extend mercy killing. They said there was a lot of unknowns beforehand, which is why they're pushing stuff like this. 23andMe, a home genetic testing kit. Kind of like Angela Jolie, kind of removing your breast because you might have breast cancer. Dehumanizing people, really. Remember those Amish that I covered about the forced cancer treatment? Look, they fled their home, leaving the country at one point because the treatments were making them sick. They're trying to end the suffering, huh? And as Wisconsin's proposing a support Planned Parenthood license plate, Russia bans advertisements for abortion. And lesbian waitress may have forged anti-gay note. That wouldn't be the first. Thank you.